How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. I'm here to do a list video tonight. This is going to be part of a project that's being done by a channel named Tim Talks Talkies. I guess this guy's name is Tim. I'm subscribed to him, but I haven't been keeping up with a lot of his videos. But he's doing this project where he's asking people to name their top 25 films from the 1990s. And then he's going to make a compilation list of the number one, number two, and all the way down, so that the favorites of the entire group of people, the community that wanted to join in. So I saw this being done by my friend Pure Hangout last night, and I thought this would be a fun project to do. So anyway, here we go. Well, first let me tell you, the 1990s. I should qualify this because the 1990s is not exactly my best year for culture, films, music, television. I turned 50 in 1991. Not a bad age to be. I wouldn't mind being that young right now, but I'm not. So in the 1990s, I was a certified workaholic. I was working 6-7 nights a week and had a lot of stress and a lot of social anxiety, which prevented me from wanting to go to see a lot of movies when I actually had a night off. So I missed so many films in the 90s that it was easy for me to make this list, because as I was looking on the lists on Wikipedia of all the films made in all the years in that decade, one after the other, so many things I'd never seen, never even heard of, titles I just wasn't familiar with at all, had no interest in really. So it was very easy to make this list because I didn't have these 5 pages of favorites where I had to sort them all out. So this is pretty easy. Anyway, let me start off here with my number 25. And from the year 1995, I have Toy Story. Now, I didn't see this when it first came out. I took a Pixar class in 2016, I believe it was, caught up with a lot of the Pixar films, and this absolutely was the best of the group. I really enjoyed this. Saw Toy Story 2 and 3. Love them both as well. Have not seen the last one, but I will eventually, because these are great fun. All right. Next up, from the year 1998, is this very strange little film called Buffalo 66, written and directed by Vincent Gallo, who was a very strange guy on his own, and he stars along with Christina Ricci. And it's kind of hard to explain the plot of this film. It's a comedy, but it's also a character study, very kind of weird and dramatic in some places. Also, Ben Gazzara, Rosanna Arquette, Jan Michael Vincent, Mickey Rourke, and Angelica Houston. Very strange film. Okay. Next up, from the year 1998, Apt Pupil, starring Ian McKellen and Brad Renfro, in a film that is very difficult to watch in a way, because it's very dark. This young kid becomes obsessed with this older man in his neighborhood that he finds out is an escaped Nazi, right, who's hiding. And he decides to go after this guy, not because he necessarily wants to expose him, but he wants to learn what this guy is all about, what it was like to do the things he did. And they both get totally obsessive about this, and it gets really ugly. But it's a beautifully written and acted film, so highly recommend it. Next up, from the year 1995, The Usual Suspects. This is a big favorite for a lot of people. It's probably going to be on a lot of lists. Just a beautifully written, very convoluted, but again, beautifully written and orchestrated story about this incredible group of criminals who planned the ultimate heist. And it's just Kevin Spacey, that last scene will haunt you for the rest of your life. Next up, from 1994, great cult movie, Clerks, the one that started it all. I love this movie. Didn't care at all for Clerks 2. Have not seen the new one that came out recently, but yeah, this is fantastic. So very happy to have this. Next up, from the year 1998, is The Truman Show, starring Jim Carrey. A lot of people don't like this, but I think it's a brilliant film, and it has a lot to tell us about the nature of reality television and all that sort of thing. Celebrity, people who are really nobody at all becoming celebrities, and also people being used. in ways that turn out to be really ugly. But I think Jim Carrey is terrific. All right. Next up from the year 1995 is a wonderful English film, Persuasion, based on a novel by Jane Austen, which I've also read. And they do a beautiful job of bringing the book to life, starring Amanda Root and Ciarán Hinds, I believe that's how it's pronounced. And I love these English dramas. They're wonderful. All right. Next up is Trekkies from 1998, documentary. This is the movie that made me into a Trekkie, basically. I grew up during the years when Star Trek was on, had no interest in it, and it wasn't until early in the it was around 2005 when I finally just converted to Trekism. It's just a very sudden thing, and I found this, and I wanted to know what it was like to be at a convention. This is what convinced me to go to Star Trek conventions, and so I went to something like 15 after that, and it was a lot of fun. All the cool stuff, all the original series people, the ones who are still alive, are in here, and yeah, all right. Trekkies. And there's a sequel to Trekkies 2. You wanted to know that, didn't you? Next up is Chasing Amy, Kevin Smith. This is from 1997. And what can I say? Ben Affleck, Jason Lee, Joey Lauren Adams. Profane, over the top, hard to believe that anybody could be this crazy in their lives. But yeah, just a great, fun movie, right? And speaking of Star Trek, this is Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, and this is one of my favorites because it's the last film in which the original series cast was all together. Okay, and some of them were in the generations, but this is the last one where they were all together. So this is a real special film. It has a good theme too as well, right? Next up is a quirky little comedy from 1996 called Mother, starring and directed by Albert Brooks, and his mother is played by Debbie Reynolds, who is just really fantastic. And it's all about a grown man, an adult man, who is having all kinds of trouble in his life with women, and he decides that the only way he can learn about why he has so much trouble with women is to go back and live with his mother. Makes sense to me. Mother's not too crazy about the idea, but it's very funny, but it also gets very dramatic and has a lot to say about relationships. And Debbie Reynolds is fantastic in this. Now, in the weirdness of the Motion Picture Academy, the Oscars, she had a leading role in this film, but they nominated her for Best Supporting Actress, which is a cop-out and it's ridiculous. And she should have been nominated for Best Actress, but it doesn't take anything away from the fact that she showed how good she was at comedy and how good she was at drama when it was called for. She talked about making this movie in her autobiography and how difficult it was for her because she hadn't done this kind of intense acting for quite a while, and having to memorize all that dialogue, it wasn't easy. But Albert Brooks was very supportive, and he brought her a good performance out of her. So, Mother. Not to be confused with that later Mother starring Jennifer Lawrence, which we will not talk about. Next up is Speed, 1994. Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Sandra Bullock. This is a great, great action film. And I'm not a big action film guy at all, but I do like this one. And Dennis Hopper can play crazy like nobody else. So this is a showcase for Dennis Hopper and his signature weirdness, all right? Everything about this movie is cool. I like it a lot. Next up is another terrific British classic from 1993. Wait a minute, Howard's End? Yeah, 1992, sorry. Howard's End, beautiful movie. Merchant Ivory, Anthony Hopkins, Emma Thompson, Vanessa Redgrave, Helena Bonham Carter, James Wilby. Just a beautiful movie, again, from a beautiful book, which I also read. And yeah, I just picked this up recently. Hadn't seen it in a long time. Very happy to have it. Next up is the best movie ever made about Star Trek, which isn't actually about Star Trek, really, but everybody knows that it is. Galaxy Quest from 1999? Yeah, 1999. Okay. Tim Allen, Sigourney Weaver, Alan Rickman. What can I say? This is one thing that all of the Trekkies agree on. I don't think I've ever met anybody who they call themselves Trekkies, Trekkers, or whatever, Star Trek freaks, and they argue about everything about Star Trek, everything. But this is one thing that everybody agrees on, that this is the best movie about Star Trek. And they usually play this at a lot of conventions, so it's just so much fun. All right. Next up is The Blair Witch Project from 1999. Probably controversial for a lot of people, because a lot of people, I think this is a movie that people either love or hate. I did see this when it first came to the theater, and it was an amazing experience, although at the end, a lot of people were let down and going, because nothing really, well, you know the story about Blair Witch, but it's a fascinating idea, orchestrated beautifully. I saw this again in a film class not that many years ago, all about the films of 1999. There were people in the class, senior citizens like me, who had never seen this, and they believed it was real. They were convinced after seeing the movie that it was real, and the instructor had to tell them, no, step one, step two, no. But yeah, great movie. They did a good job with this. Next up is more Star Trek. I think I like this one better than any of the others. Well, obviously it's in my list here, but yeah, Star Trek First Contact, which is the one that basically started with the entire cast well, no, they were all in Generations, weren't they? It's been a long time since I've watched these movies. Anyway, I think this is the best use of the Next Generation cast. Brings the Borg in. Alfred Woodard is terrific in this. Zefram Cochrane, the character, it's a great movie. And it's also very funny, too. You get to see Marina Sirtis get drunk, which is fun. All right. Next up is the movie about the mob. This is Goodfellas, directed by Scorsese, Ray Liotta, Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci. Wow, just a great movie. And yeah, I'm not that. I like Scorsese for many of the things he did. I'm not the biggest fan of his ongoing obsession with mobsters and all that. I didn't like Casino, but you know, this is a classic. This is extremely well done, and I think it's the definitive film about the mafia. So you don't need anything else ever. Next up is another British classic, Remains of the Day, which is on a nice little double feature with Sense and Sensibility. So this is a Emma Thompson double feature, and actually this could also be on my list because I love this. But Remains of the Day is just a beautiful, sad, story of lost love or love denied, I guess. Anthony Hopkins and Emma Thompson, also Christopher Reeve and James Fox. Terrific movie. Merchant Ivory. What can I say? Next up is the one Woody Allen film on the list. This is Husbands and Wives from the year 1992, starring Woody Allen, Blythe Danner, Judy Davis, Mia Farrow, Juliette Lewis, Liam Neeson, Sidney Pollack. Now, this is not only one of Woody's best serious films, but it's also the last film that he made with Mia Farrow. They were going through their very difficult and ugly breakup while they were making this film. And of course, it got much uglier afterward. It continues to be ugly all these years later. But however you might feel about Woody Allen, Mia Farrow, or anything that may or may not have happened, I can recommend this film. It's fascinating. It will get your attention, the way these people treat each other and talk to each other. So it's one of his best serious films. Right. Next up is one of the best comedies of the 1990s, In and Out. Kevin Kline. Let's see. Kevin Kline, Tom Selleck, Joan Cusack, Matt Dillon, Debbie Reynolds again, Wilford Brimley, Bob Newhart. Just a fantastic, funny film. It's one of the best. I did go to see this at the theater. I went with a group of friends. The theater was jammed. For some reason, I was feeling good that night. And it's one of the best theater experiences I can remember, because it was just, everybody was having a great time. You know, some of the outrageous stuff that was going on, and you just couldn't help but love these characters. And yeah, Kevin Kline is fantastic. He's the one. He makes it work more than anybody. But they're all terrific, right? Debbie Reynolds, once again, this time in a supporting role, very good supporting role. All right, next up is a quirky little film that I saw at a film festival way back in the late 1990s, Jesus' Son, which is, let's see, 1990, 1999 again. Billy Crudup, Samantha Morton, Dennis Leary, Holly Hunter, Dennis Hopper, Jack Black. It's all about drug addicts living in a small college town in Iowa. And it's partly very funny, but it has a lot of serious drama in it. And Billy Crudup is terrific. I'd never seen the guy before. Jack Black is very funny. Dennis Hopper, of course, is a little more normal in this one. But there's a fantastic scene in this where Billy Crudup and Jack Black are stoned out of their minds, and they're driving out in the country in the middle of a snowstorm. And for some reason, they decide to stop the car and go wandering off into the woods. And they come to this open field where you see all these crosses sticking up out of the ground. You think you're in a graveyard or something like that. And then you realize as they find that it's an abandoned drive-in, right? They see the screen up here and the projector and everything back. And so it's just they're wandering around this place, and all of a sudden on the screen there is a scene from Carnival of Souls, which is another classic cult film, which is very strange but very funny. So yeah. Right. Next up is a very minor film that I doubt if many of you have ever heard of. This is called Joe the King. This is from 1999 also, and directed by an actor named Frank Whaley, who you might remember from Pulp Fiction. He doesn't appear in this film. We have the lead character, this kid, is played by Noah Fleiss. Also, we have Karen Young, John Leguizamo, Ethan Hawke, and Val Kilmer. Okay, now it's all about this young boy who's trying to navigate his life in a very dysfunctional family, in a school where he is mentally abused by the faculty, and he's just trying to survive. And he does a lot of things that he shouldn't do. Ethan Hawke plays a school counselor who supposedly is trying to help him, but he ends up making things worse. Val Kilmer plays his father, who was an alcoholic and very, very abusive and ugly. Great performance by everybody. This kid, I don't know what else he may have done, but yeah, he's just a fantastic little actor. And it is absolutely the best thing that I've ever seen Val Kilmer do. So once again, Joe the King. All right. Next up is Ed Wood, which I love this film. This is one I also saw in the theater, so I've loved this for a long time. All about the director Ed Wood, played by Johnny Depp. Bela Lugosi, who worked with Ed Wood, is played by Martin Landau, who won an Academy Award. Sarah Jessica Parker, Bill Murray. Lisa Marie plays Vampira, the actress, and it's directed by Tim Burton. Great movie, black and white. Here's a movie that a lot of you may not know about, also from 1999, The Red Violin, starring Samuel L. Jackson. And this is a very unusual film which haunts me to this day. I was handed this film by a guy I work with. He was my mechanic, right? He handed me this DVD one day and he said, take this home and watch it. Okay. You don't say no to your mechanic because he might screw up your machinery. But I was so glad that he made me discover this. Samuel L. Jackson plays an art appraiser who is at an auction in Montreal, and he's supposed to decide if these things are authentic. And one thing he's supposed to decide on is, well, he actually is, it's not art he's appraising, it's musical instruments, sorry. So he's looking at all these violins, trying to decide how much money they're worth. And this is a story of a violin that was made in Italy back in, I believe, the 1600s, and its progression down to the present day, where it ended up with different people and their stories and how they interacted with this violin, which has a very strange and mystical reality that you don't find out until the very end. And it will break your heart. It's a beautiful film with very haunting music that goes along with it that will also stay in your head forever. And I give it the highest recommendation. And finally, my #1 film from the decade is Dark City, which is one of the best science fiction film noirs ever made. Probably the only one, actually. But I think it's better than Blade Runner, better than a lot of films. It has people like Rufus Sewell, Jennifer Connelly, Kiefer Sutherland. It's just a fantastic Beautiful film to look at with terrific special effects, but it's not overwhelmed by the special effects. It has a great story, a great idea, and they execute it beautifully. So highly recommended. Anyway, that's my list. Sorry to keep you for 20 minutes. Let me know what you think, and I'll talk to you soon.